27 days. That's how long it took to erase an entire nation from the map. Not in the ancient world, in 1939. Not with siege engines and starvation, with a weapon so new, so devastating, that the world didn't even have a name for it yet. They would call it Blitzkrieg, Lightning War. September 1st, 1939, 4:45 a.m. Polish border guards hear a sound they'll never forget. Tank engines, not dozens, but hundreds, roaring to life in the darkness. Then the screaming dive of Stuka bombers, sirens howling like banshees. Then the earth itself seems to explode. By noon, German tanks are 30 miles inside Poland. By sunset, Polish communications are dead. By the end of the week, entire armies are surrounded. 5 weeks later, Poland no longer exists. Denmark falls in 6 hours. Norway in 2 months. France, the great military power that held Germany at bay for 4 years in the last war, collapses in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. For 2 years, Blitzkrieg seems like a cheat code for war itself. Unstoppable. Inevitable. The future of warfare. But every weapon has a breaking point. In the frozen mud outside Moscow, German tanks grind to a halt, their engines frozen solid. In the burning rubble of Stalingrad, the hunters become the hunted. At Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, the lightning finally strikes the ground. This is the story of the rise and fall of Blitzkrieg, of how a handful of brilliant officers revolutionized war, of how Adolf Hitler wielded their creation to conquer a continent, and of how that same weapon, pushed too far against too many enemies, shattered against distance, winter, and human will. It's a story of genius and hubris, of innovation and arrogance, of the moment when tactical brilliance collides with strategic blindness. But to understand how the lightning fell, we need to go back 20 years, to a railway car in a French forest, to the peace treaty that guaranteed another war, to the moment when the seeds of catastrophe were planted. November 11th, 1918. 11 o'clock in the morning. All along the Western Front, from the English Channel to the Swiss border, the guns fall silent. 4 years of slaughter, over 10 million dead, finally ends. German soldiers, their armies retreating but still fighting, lay down their weapons. But already, a dangerous myth is taking root. German generals don't believe they lost the war. Not on the battlefield. They blame politicians, socialists, and Jews for stabbing the army in the back. The Dolchstoßlegende, the stab in the back legend. A lie that will poison Germany for the next 2 decades. Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicates and flees to Holland. Germany becomes a democracy, the Weimar Republic. But it's a democracy born in defeat, humiliation, and chaos. 6 months later, the victorious powers gather at the Palace of Versailles to write the peace treaty. President Woodrow Wilson of the United States arrives with grand dreams of a new world order. He proposes a League of Nations, an organization where disputes between countries would be resolved through debate, not war. But France wants revenge. Britain wants Germany permanently weakened. And the treaty they produce plants the seeds for another catastrophe. Germany is stripped of its military power. The army, once millions strong, is limited to 100,000 men. No tanks, No aircraft. No submarines. The general staff is abolished. Territory is carved away. Poland is reborn after more than a century of partition. The Rhineland is demilitarized. The Saar region placed under League of Nations control. Germany's colonies seized and distributed to the victors. And then comes the truly crushing blow, reparations. £6.6 billion, roughly $330 billion in today's money. A sum Germany has no realistic way of paying. Article 231 forces Germany to accept sole responsibility for starting the war. The War Guilt Clause. To most Germans, this feels like a national humiliation. Wilson's League of Nations is created. But when the president returns to America, the Senate refuses to ratify the treaty. The United States, the world's rising superpower, retreats into isolationism. The League is born toothless, without America's weight behind it. The Weimar Republic staggers from crisis to crisis. In 1923, hyperinflation reaches insane levels. A loaf of bread costs billions of marks. Life savings become worthless overnight. Workers need wheelbarrows to carry enough cash for daily groceries. Street battles erupt between communist revolutionaries and right-wing paramilitary groups. The government seems powerless. Democracy itself appears to be failing. But in the shadows, the German military is already planning its comeback. The Treaty of Versailles forbids Germany from developing tanks or modern weapons. So in 1923, Germany signs a secret treaty with the Soviet Union, another pariah state. In exchange for industrial equipment, the Soviets allow German officers to test and develop forbidden weapons on Russian soil. Tank prototypes are built and tested in secret. Pilots train at hidden airfields. The expertise isn't lost, it goes underground. Young officers, like Heinz Guderian, study everything they can get their hands on. They read British military theorists like J. F. C. Fuller and Basil Liddell Hart, who advocate for mobile armoured warfare. They study the few tank battles of World War I. They develop theories about concentrated armour, striking deep into enemy territory, bypassing strong points, creating chaos in the rear. The old generals still think in terms of World War I, static fronts, grinding attrition. But these younger officers are imagining something completely different. A war of movement, of speed, of shock. They just need someone reckless enough to let them try it. In November 1923, an Austrian-born former corporal named Adolf Hitler attempts an armed coup in Munich. The beer hall putsch is a fiasco. Hitler is arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He serves only 9 months. But in that time, he writes a book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. In its pages, he lays out his vision for Germany's future. Germany must expand eastward to gain Lebensraum, living space. The Slavic peoples of Eastern Europe are inferior and must be enslaved or eliminated. The Jews are responsible for Germany's defeat and must be destroyed. Democracy is weak. Only a strong leader, a Führer, can restore Germany's greatness. Most people dismiss it as the ranting of a failed revolutionary. For the next few years, they seem right. From 1924 to 1929, Germany actually prospers. American loans help rebuild the economy. The currency stabilizes. Support for extremist parties, both left and right, dwindles. Democracy seems to be working after all. Then, In October 1929, the New York stock market crashes. The Great Depression sweeps across the world like a tidal wave. Banks collapse. Factories close. By 1932, Germany has over 6 million unemployed. Breadlines stretch for blocks. Families go hungry. And suddenly, extremist politicians don't seem so extreme anymore. Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis, offer simple answers to complex problems. Blame the Versailles Treaty. Blame the Jews. Blame the communists. Restore German pride. Make Germany great again. In the 1932 elections, the Nazis become the largest party in the German parliament. Hitler refuses to join a coalition government. He wants absolute power or nothing. To break the political deadlock, President Paul von Hindenburg makes a fateful decision. On January 30th, 1933, he appoints Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. The old guard believe they can control him. Use him. What is 1640, bull? Manipulate him. They're catastrophically wrong. While Germany struggles with democracy and depression, two other nations are already showing the world that aggression pays. And the democracies do nothing. Japan in the 1930s is a nation with a massive problem. Its population is exploding, from 30 million in 1870 to over 60 million by 1930. It's an island nation with virtually no natural resources. No oil, no iron, no coal worth mentioning. But it has a rapidly modernizing military and ambitious officers who see a solution: China. Specifically, Manchuria, China's northeastern region. Rich in grain, coal, iron ore, and minerals. Sparsely populated. Weakly defended. Perfect. On September 18, 1931, officers of the Japanese Kwantung Army stage a fake attack on the Japanese-controlled South Manchuria Railway near Mukden. They blame Chinese dissidents. Within hours, Japanese troops are pouring into Manchuria. Here's the shocking part. The Japanese government in Tokyo doesn't even know it's happening. The military is acting on its own. By the time politicians find out, Japanese forces have already seized Mukden. Rather than pull back, the government decides to support the fait accompli. Within 5 months, all of Manchuria is under Japanese control. They create a puppet state called Manchukuo and install Puyi, the last emperor of China, deposed in 1911, as its figurehead ruler. The League of Nations condemns Japan, sends a commission to investigate, issues a report declaring the invasion illegal. Japan's response? They walk out of the League in February 1933, and nothing happens. No military intervention. No economic sanctions that matter. Japan keeps Manchuria. The lesson is clear. Aggression works, and the League of Nations is powerless to stop it. Meanwhile, in Italy, another lesson in aggression is unfolding. Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, the leader, seized power in 1922 after his blackshirts marched on Rome. King Victor Emmanuel III, fearing civil war, asked Mussolini to form a government. Within 6 years, Mussolini had dismantled Italian democracy and established a fascist dictatorship. At first, his rule actually seems impressive to outside observers. Massive infrastructure projects provide jobs. The trains run on time. The mafia is crushed. Corruption is reduced. Italy's military is modernized. The air force becomes one of the most advanced in Europe. political leaders around the world take notice. Even Winston Churchill initially praises Mussolini's efficiency. To many, fascism seems like a viable alternative to the chaos of democracy or the brutality of communism. But Mussolini dreams of more than domestic success. He wants to recreate the Roman Empire, and he has a specific target in mind: Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia. Italy already controls colonies on Abyssinia's borders, Eritrea to the north, and Italian Somaliland to the southeast. In December 1934, Italian forces deliberately provoke a clash with Abyssinian troops at the Wal Wal oasis, well inside Abyssinian territory. Mussolini demands reparations. Emperor Haile Selassie appeals to the League of Nations. Surely, the international community will protect a small nation from naked aggression. They won't. On October 3, 1935, Italian forces invade from both Eritrea and Italian Somaliland. Modern tanks, artillery, and aircraft against Abyssinian soldiers armed mostly with rifles and spears. Italian pilots drop poison gas on villages and troop concentrations, a war crime explicitly banned by international law. The Abyssinians fight bravely. Emperor Selassie himself takes command of his forces. But courage can't stop artillery shells or poison gas. In May 1936, after 6 months of fighting, Italian forces enter the capital, Addis Ababa. Selassie flees to Britain. Mussolini declares the King of Italy to be Emperor of Ethiopia. The League of Nations imposes economic sanctions on Italy, but they're carefully designed to be ineffective. Oil, the one thing Italy desperately needs for its military, is not sanctioned. Britain and France fear that real sanctions might push Mussolini into Hitler's arms. In June 1936, Haile Selassie addresses the League of Nations in Geneva. His speech is interrupted by jeering Italian journalists. He warns the assembled nations, "It is us today. It will be you tomorrow." No one listens. The sanctions are lifted. Italy keeps Abyssinia. Two aggressors, Japan and Italy, have both attacked weaker neighbours. Both have been condemned by the League of Nations. Both walked away with their conquests intact. The pattern is established. Aggression works. The democracies are weak and indecisive. The League of Nations is a joke. And in Berlin, Adolf Hitler is taking notes. Within weeks of becoming Chancellor, Hitler begins consolidating power. On February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building burns. Hitler blames communist agitators and demands emergency powers. President Hindenburg gives them to him. Those powers are never relinquished. By July, all political parties except the Nazis are banned. Trade unions are dissolved. The press is brought under state control. In August 1934, when Hindenburg dies, Hitler combines the offices of President and Chancellor. He declares himself Führer, leader of Germany. He now has absolute power. And he immediately begins spending it on rearmament. Publicly, Hitler speaks of peace. Privately, he tells his generals on February 3, 1933, exactly what he wants: conquest of territory in the East and its ruthless Germanization. The military loves it. Finally, a leader who understands their value. From 1933 to 1935, rearmament happens in secret. The 100,000-man army is quietly tripled. Tank prototypes developed in the Soviet Union are put into production. The Forbidden Air Force, the Luftwaffe, is built in the shadows under Hermann Göring, a World War I flying ace and early Nazi. Göring is corrupt, vain, and addicted to morphine. He's also ruthlessly efficient at building an air force from nothing. By 1935, Germany has over 2,000 aircraft. On March 9, 1935, Hitler decides to stop hiding. He publicly announces the existence of the Luftwaffe, 2,500 aircraft strong, far more than Britain or France. He reintroduces conscription. He declares Germany's army will expand to 36 divisions. Britain and France protest. Diplomatic notes are sent. Meetings are held. No action is taken. Hitler has called their bluff, and they've folded. Meanwhile, the German military is undergoing a revolution in thinking. Those young officers who studied mobile warfare in the 1920s are now in positions of influence. Heinz Guderian, now a general, becomes the loudest advocate for a new way of war. His vision: don't spread tanks out to support infantry like the French do. Concentrate them into independent armoured divisions. Use them like cavalry once was, to break through enemy lines and race deep into the rear. Combine the tanks with motorised infantry, artillery, and, critically, air support. The Luftwaffe's Junkers 87 Stuka dive bomber is designed specifically for this. Flying artillery that can provide close support to advancing tanks. Speed is everything. Don't stop to consolidate. Keep moving. Cut enemy communications. Create chaos. Bypass strong points and leave them for the infantry following behind. Encircle entire enemy armies before they can react. Older generals are skeptical. This sounds reckless. What about flanks? What about supply lines? What if the armour gets stuck? Guderian argues back. The enemy won't have time to exploit weaknesses if you move fast enough. Speed itself becomes protection. Shock and psychological impact matter as much as firepower. Hitler loves the idea. Aggressive, decisive, quick victories before the enemy can mobilize. And soon, they'll get a chance to test these theories in real combat. In July 1936, civil war erupts in Spain. Right-wing nationalist forces, led by General Francisco Franco, rebel against the left-wing Republican government. It quickly becomes a proxy war. Hitler sends the Condor Legion, volunteers from the Luftwaffe and army. Mussolini sends 50,000 Italian troops. The Soviet Union sends advisors, tanks, and aircraft to the Republicans. International brigades of foreign volunteers arrive to fight for the Republic. For Germany, Spain becomes a laboratory. New weapons are tested in combat. Tactics are refined. Officers gain experience. On April 26, 1937, German bombers destroy the Basque town of Guernica. Market day. Civilians packed into the streets. The bombing lasts over 3 hours. 1,600 people die. The world is horrified. Pablo Picasso paints his masterpiece in response. But the bombing continues. By April 1939, Franco's nationalists have won. Germany's military has learned valuable lessons about combined arms warfare. And the democracies have learned that their policy of non-intervention means standing by while fascism triumphs. Now, Hitler is ready to move beyond testing. In March 1938, German troops march into Austria. The Anschluss, annexation, is presented as a peaceful union of German-speaking peoples. In reality, it's backed by the threat of military force. Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg caves. Austria ceases to exist as an independent nation. Britain and France protest. No action is taken. 6 months later, Hitler demands the Sudetenland, the German-speaking border regions of Czechoslovakia. He claims the Czech government is mistreating ethnic Germans. He threatens war if his demands aren't met. This time, it looks like war might actually come. France has a treaty with Czechoslovakia. Britain begins mobilizing. Gas masks are distributed to British civilians. Trenches are dug in London parks. Then, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flies to Germany to negotiate. Not once, but 3 times. On September 29, 1938, in Munich, Britain and France agree to Hitler's demands. The Sudetenland is handed over. In exchange, Hitler promises this is his last territorial demand in Europe. Chamberlain flies home, waving a piece of paper. Peace in our time, he declares. Winston Churchill, then a backbench member of Parliament, rises in the House of Commons. Britain and France had to choose between war and dishonour, he says. They chose dishonour. They will have war. The sleeted. He's right. On March 15, 1939, German troops march into the rest of Czechoslovakia. Hitler has broken his promise. For the first time, he seized territory that isn't even ethnically German. Finally, the democracies wake up. Britain and France pledge to defend Poland if Germany attacks. Hitler doesn't believe them. He's tested them repeatedly, and they've always backed down. Why would Poland be any different? Besides, he's about to pull off his greatest diplomatic coup. On August 23, 1939, the world is stunned by an announcement. Germany and the Soviet Union have signed a non-aggression pact. Publicly, it's a simple promise not to attack each other. Privately, there's a secret protocol. Poland will be divided between them. Stalin gets Eastern Poland, plus a free hand in the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Hitler now has a free hand in the West. No two-front war. No Soviet threat while he deals with Poland. On August 31, 1939, German soldiers dressed in Polish uniforms attack a German radio station at Gleiwitz. They leave behind the bodies of concentration camp prisoners dressed as Polish soldiers. The Nazis claim Poland has attacked German territory. It's a transparent lie. But Hitler doesn't care if anyone believes it. He just needs a pretext. At 4:45 the next morning, the guns open fire. The Polish border guards along the frontier with Germany have been on high alert for weeks. Tensions have been building all summer, but nothing has prepared them for what happens at 4:45 a.m. on September 1, 1939. The darkness erupts. Not with the steady artillery barrage of World War I, but with a rolling thunderstorm of explosions. Hundreds of German guns firing simultaneously. Then comes a sound that will haunt the survivors forever, the roar of tank engines. Not a few tanks, hundreds of them. By first light, German Panzer Mark Is, 2s, 3s, and 4s are crossing the border at multiple points. They're not massive machines. Most weigh under 20 tons. They're not even particularly well armed compared to some Polish tanks. But they're concentrated, and they're moving fast. At 7 a.m., the Polish Air Force begins scrambling its fighters to respond. Many never make it off the ground. German Messerschmitt fighters are already over Polish airfields. Hangars explode. Planes parked wingtip to wingtip are strafed where they sit. Within hours, the Luftwaffe has destroyed significant portions of Poland's air force on the ground. By the end of the first day, Germany has air superiority. This is Blitzkrieg in its purest form. Phase 1. Achieve air superiority. Destroy enemy aircraft on the ground if possible. Bomb airfields, command posts, communication centers. Phase 2. Armored breakthrough. Concentrate tanks at specific points, not across a broad front. Punch through enemy defenses. Don't stop to fight every position. Keep moving. Phase 3. Deep penetration. Race past the breakthrough point into the enemy rear. Cut roads, railways, communication lines. Spread panic and confusion. Keep the enemy off balance. Phase 4. Encirclement. While fast-moving armor races forward, infantry follows to mop up bypassed positions. The armor then curves around to cut off entire enemy formations. Phase 5. Annihilation. Trapped armies either surrender or are destroyed. Poland faces an additional nightmare: geography. The country is surrounded on 3 sides. Germany to the west. German-controlled Slovakia to the south. East Prussia, a detached part of Germany, to the north. The German plan exploits this perfectly. Army Group North under General Fedor von Bock attacks from Germany and East Prussia. Army Group South under General Gerd von Rundstedt drives from Germany and Slovakia. The goal: 2 massive pincer movements. One to meet near Warsaw. Another further east at Brest-Litovsk. The Polish army is not the medieval force of popular imagination. It has 35 divisions, over 1 million men. It has 880 tanks. Some, like the 7 TP, are actually better armed and armoured than many German panzers. But Polish tanks are dispersed among infantry units for support. Germany's are concentrated in 10 mechanized divisions, designed specifically for breakthrough and exploitation. The myth of Polish cavalry charging German tanks needs to be addressed. It didn't happen, not the way it's often portrayed. Poland did have 11 cavalry brigades. They were mounted infantry, trained to ride to battle, then dismount to fight. They had anti-tank guns and were effective in reconnaissance. On September 1st, the Pomorzec Cavalry Brigade did charge German infantry near Krojanty. They scattered the infantry. Then German armoured cars arrived and cut the cavalry down. Italian war correspondents witnessed the aftermath and reported it as cavalry charging tanks. The myth was born. The reality is worse than the myth. The Polish army fights bravely and well. Polish soldiers show tremendous courage. But courage can't overcome the speed and coordination of the German attack. By September 3rd, Britain and France finally make good on their promise. They declare war on Germany, and then do absolutely nothing to help Poland. The French army sits behind the Maginot Line. A few patrols venture a mile or 2 into German territory, then pull back. Britain begins mobilizing, but has only 2 divisions ready. Poland is alone. September 8th, the German pincers are already closing around Warsaw. The capital is surrounded on 3 sides. Civilians begin fleeing east in massive columns. German Stukas dive bomb the refugee streams. The sirens on the Stuka landing gear create a distinctive wailing scream as they dive, psychological warfare by design. Polish forces attempt counterattacks. At Bzura River, Polish forces actually achieve local success, forcing Germans back. But German armour quickly surrounds the salient. The Luftwaffe pounds Polish positions relentlessly. Without air cover, without adequate anti-aircraft guns, the Poles are helpless. Then comes the final betrayal. September 17th, as Polish forces are still fighting desperately in the west, the Soviet Union invades from the east. 600,000 Soviet troops cross the border. Poland's eastern defences are minimal. Everything has been committed to fighting the Germans. The Red Army meets little resistance. Within days, Soviet forces link up with German forces in eastern Poland. Newsreels show German and Soviet officers shaking hands, toasting each other's success. Two totalitarian powers dividing a democratic nation between them. Warsaw continues to resist. The capital endures 3 weeks of siege. German artillery pounds the city day and night. The Luftwaffe drops incendiary bombs. Entire neighborhoods burn. Food and water run low. Medical supplies are exhausted. On September 27th, with no hope of relief, no ammunition left, and civilians starving, Warsaw surrenders. On October 6th, the last organized Polish resistance is crushed. The campaign is over. 36 days after the first shot was fired, Poland no longer exists as an independent state. The cost in blood is staggering. Poland, 66,000 military dead, 133,000 wounded, 694,000 prisoners of war. Civilian casualties are hard to calculate, but certainly in the tens of thousands. Germany, 16,000 dead, 30,000 wounded, 3,000 missing. For conquering an entire nation in 5 weeks, the casualties are remarkably light by World War I standards. The speed is what shocks the world. Less than 6 weeks. An entire country. Erased. But the horror is only beginning. Following the Wehrmacht, the regular German army, come special SS units called Einsatzgruppen. Their mission is to eliminate anyone who might resist German rule. Polish intellectuals, teachers, priests, and political leaders are rounded up and executed. In the first 2 months, over 60,000 Poles are murdered. Jews are herded into ghettos in major cities. Warsaw's Jewish population, over 300,000 people, is forced into an area of about 1.3 square miles. Starvation and disease become the norm. This is only the beginning of the Holocaust. But the machinery of genocide is already being assembled. On September 28th, Germany and the Soviet Union formally partition Poland. Western Poland is annexed directly into the Third Reich. Central Poland becomes the general government, a colony to be exploited. Eastern Poland is absorbed into the Soviet Union. Poland, as a nation, has been erased from the map. Again, just as it had been in the 18th century when Prussia, Austria, and Russia divided it among themselves. But this time, something is different. Over 50,000 Polish soldiers, sailors, and airmen manage to escape. They make their way through Romania, Hungary, and the Baltic states. Eventually, most reach France and Britain. On September 30th, a Polish government in exile is formed in Paris under General Władysław Sikorski. The Polish flag still flies. Polish forces will continue to fight. They'll fight in France. They'll fight in the skies over Britain. They'll fight at Monte Cassino in Italy. They'll fight until Germany is defeated. But for now, Germany celebrates. The Wehrmacht has proven its revolutionary tactics in combat. Blitzkrieg works. Concentrated armor, combined arms, deep penetration, encirclement. The world takes notice. Military observers from dozens of nations study what happened in Poland. This is a new way of war. Fast, decisive, brutal. But Britain and France remain confident. Poland was outnumbered, surrounded, and caught off guard, they tell themselves. The French army is the most powerful in Europe. The Maginot Line is impregnable. When Germany tries the same tactics in the West, they'll be stopped cold. They're wrong. Catastrophically wrong. But for now, as autumn turns to winter in 1939, an eerie quiet settles over Western Europe. Britain and France are at war with Germany. But no one is fighting. American journalists call it the phony war. The Germans call it the Sitzkrieg, the sitting war. It won't last. Hitler is already planning his next move. And when the lightning strikes again, it will make Poland look like a rehearsal. The guns may have fallen silent on land, but at sea, the war is very real. September 3rd, 1939. The same day, Britain and France declare war. Admiral Karl Dönitz already has U-boats at sea. That evening, U-30 torpedoes what it thinks is an armed merchant cruiser off Ireland. It's actually the passenger liner SS Athenia. 112 people die in the freezing Atlantic. 28 are Americans. The Battle of the Atlantic has begun. On paper, the Royal Navy dominates. 12 battleships to Germany's 0. 5 aircraft carriers to 0. But Britain's navy is spread thin across a global empire, and critically short on escort vessels. Dönitz wants 300 ocean-going U-boats to strangle Britain. He has 57 total, only 22 capable of Atlantic operations. September 17th, U-29 torpedoes aircraft carrier HMS Courageous. 518 sailors die. October 13th, midnight. U-47 under Günther Prien navigates through a gap in the defences at Scapa Flow, the Royal Navy's main base. Finds battleship HMS Royal Oak at anchor. Torpedoes her. 833 men trapped below decks as the ship capsizes. Prien escapes. Returns to Germany a national hero. The British are humiliated. The pocket battleship Admiral Graf Spee prowls the South Atlantic. From September to December, she sinks 9 merchant ships. The Royal Navy forms 8 hunting groups to find her. December 13th, 3 British cruisers intercept Graf Spee off Uruguay. The Battle of the River Plate. HMS Exeter takes terrible damage, but Ajax and Achilles press the attack. Graf Spee retreats into Montevideo harbour. The British spread false intelligence about massive reinforcements arriving. Captain Langsdorff believes it. December 17th, rather than face what he thinks is overwhelming force, he scuttles his ship. 3 days later, shoots himself. Britain's first clear naval victory. But merchant ships keep sinking. Then, the mystery weapon. Ships exploding without hitting anything. Magnetic mines sitting on the seabed, triggered by a ship's magnetic field. November 22nd, 1 drops at low tide in Thames mudflats. Lieutenant Commander Uvry disarms it. The secret is revealed. Solution: degaussing. Copper cable around the hull reduces magnetic signature. By April 1940, Germany has sunk 222 Allied ships, but Britain's lifeline holds. Meanwhile, the world's attention turns north. November 30th, 1939. The Soviet Union invades Finland. Stalin demands territory near Leningrad for a buffer zone. Finland refuses. 1 million Soviet troops cross the border against 300,000 Finns. It should be over in weeks. Instead, catastrophe. Marshal Mannerheim uses geography and winter. Finnish ski troops in white attack from forests. Motti tactics: surround Soviet columns, cut them apart, destroy each piece. Temperatures drop to -40 Celsius. Soviet soldiers freeze to death by the thousands. Inadequate winter clothing. Vehicles won't start. Weapons jam. Their leadership is terrible. Stalin's purges have devastated the officer corps. 3 of 5 marshals executed. Surviving officers terrified to show initiative. By January, Soviets have suffered 127,000 casualties. Finns fewer than 10,000. February, a massive Soviet offensive finally breaks through. March 12th, Finland signs peace. Cedes 10% of territory, but maintains independence. The Winter War reveals critical intelligence. The Red Army is weak, poorly led, unable to conduct mobile operations. In Berlin, Hitler takes note. The Soviet Union appears ripe for conquest. April 9th, 1940. Hitler needs Swedish iron ore. The winter route runs through Norway. Operation Weserubung. Simultaneous invasion of Denmark and Norway. Denmark occupied in 6 hours. Norway. Paratroopers seize airfields. Warships land troops at 5 ports. The Norwegian government escapes to Britain. Allies land troops to retake Narvik. May 28, they succeed. But France is collapsing. June 8th, Norway abandoned. Hitler secures iron ore and naval bases. But Royal Navy losses are heavy, including carrier Glorious, sunk because a Bletchley Park warning was ignored. Lesson learned: trust ultra. The phony war winter is ending. The lightning is about to strike again. Winter 1939–40. The strangest war in history. British Expeditionary Force deploys to France. 10 divisions by May. French have over 100 divisions along borders. Germany mobilizes 140+ divisions. They just stare at each other. A few patrols. Occasional artillery exchanges. No real fighting. The French are confident. They have the Maginot Line. Massive fortifications from Switzerland to Belgium. Underground forts with retractable gun turrets. Tank obstacles. Artillery. Living quarters for thousands. Own railway system. Considered impenetrable. And probably is. Fatal flaw ends at Belgian border. Belgium is neutral. France can't fortify Belgian territory. So the northern flank is open. This doesn't worry the French. They assume Germans will attack through Belgium, like 1914. The Dial plan. Rush into Belgium when attacked, meet them on the Dial River. On paper, Allies have advantages. 144 divisions versus 141 German. 3,383 tanks versus 2,445. French tanks individually superior. Char B1, Saumur S, 35. But Germans have concentrated armour in 10 panzer divisions. French spread theirs among infantry. Fundamental doctrinal difference. French preparing to fight World War I again. Germans preparing something completely different. January 10th, 1940. German liaison aircraft crashes in Belgium, carrying complete invasion plans. Belgians pass documents to Allies. Confirms Allied expectations. Main attack through Belgium. Allies adjust dispositions. Reinforce Belgian border. They're ready. But the accident forces Germany to rethink. General Erich von Manstein proposes something audacious. The Sichelschnitt, sickle cut. Army Group B attacks Holland and Belgium. The feint. Draw Allies north. Real blow from Army Group A. Concentrate almost all panzers, 7 divisions. Drive through the impassable Ardennes forest. Cross Meuse at Sedan. Race west to English Channel. Cut off all Allied forces in Belgium. Army Group C pins French at Maginot Line. The risk is enormous. Hundreds of tanks in narrow forest roads. If caught there, destroyed. Everything depends on speed and surprise. Most German generals hate it. Too risky. Hitler loves it. Bold. Aggressive. The gambler's plan. February 1940. Approved. Panzers redeployed opposite Ardennes. Allies noticed nothing. Attention on Belgium. Ardennes lightly defended. Just cavalry screens. Second-rate divisions. After all, tanks can't get through the Ardennes. Hills. Forests. Narrow roads. Impassable. That's what they tell themselves. May 10th arrives. The waiting ends. May 10th, 1940. 5:35 a.m. German forces cross Dutch and Belgian borders. Within minutes, 4,000 paratroopers fill the sky. First major airborne assault in history. Gliders land on Fort Eben Emael. 78 engineers versus 1,200 defenders. Hollow charge explosives blow through the fort's armour. By day's end, it surrenders. Army Group B pours into Holland and Belgium. The Luftwaffe hits Allied airfields. At Allied headquarters, everything going as expected. Main German attack through Belgium. Execute dial plan. French and British forces rush forward. The best Allied units racing into Belgium. Taking the bait. 200 miles south, the impossible happens. 1,800 German tanks thread through the Ardennes. 100-mile-long column. Biggest traffic jam in military history. If Allied aircraft spot them, the operation could be destroyed. But Luftwaffe owns the sky. Reconnaissance aircraft shot down or driven off. French cavalry screens report enemy activity. Commanders don't believe it. Small raiding force, they assume. Real attack obviously in Belgium. May 12th evening, panzers reach the Meuse River. The forest passage worked. Now comes the hard part. May 13th, the day that decides the campaign. 3 crossing points. Sedan, Monthermé, Dinant. At Sedan, Guderian's 19th Panzer Corps prepares. 3 p.m. Stukas arrive. 8 hours of continuous bombing. Wave after wave, then rolling artillery from the air. The screaming sirens. The explosions. French defenders traumatized. Bunkers collapsed. Some go mad. Others abandon posts. 3 p.m. Assault engineers cross in rubber boats. Heavy fire. Many killed. But enough get across. Pontoon bridges go up. By midnight, 1st Panzers rolling across. Dawn May 14th, bridgehead 6 miles deep. At Dinant, Rommel's 7th Panzer also crosses. Rommel personally leading from front. French High Command realizes this isn't a diversion. This is the main attack. They order bombers to destroy the bridges. May 14th afternoon. 71 British and French bombers attack Sedan. German flak and fighters waiting. 40 aircraft shot down. 56% casualties. Worst loss rate of any Allied air operation. Bridges damaged, but still standing. Panzers keep crossing. Guderian does something insane. Doesn't wait to consolidate. Attacks west. Immediately. May 15th, 40 miles in a single day. Deep in French rear. Overrunning depots. Cutting communications. Creating chaos. French commanders have no idea what's happening. Reports contradictory. Communications breaking down. 11 a.m. Prime Minister Reynaud phones Churchill. We are beaten. Churchill can't believe it. 5 days. Impossible. But Reynaud is right. France is finished. Panzers race west in narrow corridor, 20 to 30 miles wide. Flanks exposed. Supply lines stretched. May 17th, Colonel de Gaulle attacks at Montcornet. 200 tanks. Initial success. Then Stukas arrive. No air support, no infantry, no coordination. Driven back. This is the pattern. French counterattacks piecemeal. Uncoordinated. Too late. May 19th, Gamelin fired. Replaced by 73-year-old Weygand. Changes nothing. May 20th, 7 p.m. 2nd Panzer Division reaches Abbeville on the Channel. Corridor complete. Allies cut in two. Trapped in north, British Expeditionary Force, French First Army, Belgian Army. Over 400,000 men. Backs to the sea. May 21st, British counterattack at Arras. 74 Matilda tanks. Hit Rommel's division. German 37mm anti-tank guns useless against Matilda armour. Rommel turns 88mm anti-aircraft guns on them. British driven back. But the attack rattles German command. Shows vulnerability. May 24th, 11:42 a.m. Hitler's order. Panzers halt. 15 miles from Dunkirk. British retreating toward the last port. German armour poised to crush them. And Hitler says stop. Reasons debated ever since. Panzers need maintenance. Flanks vulnerable. Goering promises Luftwaffe can finish them from air. Whatever the reason, 48 hours gifted to the British. May 26, 8 p.m. Operation Dynamo activated. Evacuate the Beth. Expectations low. Maybe 45,000 saved. Fleet assembles. 39 destroyers. Ferries. Cargo ships. And the little ships. 700 civilian craft. Fishing boats. Pleasure yachts. River tugs. Many crewed by owners. They cross the channel under German air attack. Bombs falling. Stukas diving. Many sunk. They keep coming. First days, chaos. Only 25,000 evacuated May 27th and 28th. Then little ships make the difference. Shallow draft reaches beaches. Ferrymen to larger vessels. RAF Fighter Command throws everything into battle. Spitfires and Hurricanes from English bases. Furious dogfights over beaches. French rearguard holds perimeter. Desperate delaying action. Many will be captured. Buying time with lives. June 4th. Last ships pull away. 338,226 men rescued. 198,000 British. 140,000 French and Belgian. But everything left behind. 2,472 guns. 65,000 vehicles. Every tank. 6 British destroyers sunk. 19 damaged. 200 smaller vessels lost. Churchill. Wars are not won by evacuations. But Britain survives. Hitler turns south. France still has 65 divisions. June 5th. Operation Red. Final destruction of France. Germans now have 142 divisions versus 65 French. 2-1 in armour. 2-1 in aircraft. French are exhausted. Demoralised. Best units lost. June 10th, Mussolini declares war. I need a few thousand dead to sit at the peace conference. Italian attack on southern France easily held. Opportunism wins nothing but contempt. June 14th, Germans enter Paris. Declared open city. Swastika on Eiffel Tower. Government fled to Bordeaux. Debate: fight from North Africa or seek armistice. June 16th, Reynaud resigns. Marshal Pétain, 84, hero of Verdun, becomes Prime Minister. Immediately requests armistice. June 18th, de Gaulle broadcasts from London. France has lost a battle, not the war. Forms Free French. June 22nd, armistice signed. Same railway car as 1918. Hitler's revenge for Versailles. Northern France, occupied. Southern France, Vichy puppet state under Pétain. The cost: France, 360,000 casualties, 1.9 million POWs. Britain, 68,000. Belgium, 23,000. Holland, 10,000. Germany, 157,000. 46 days. 6 weeks. What took 4 years in World War I done in 6 weeks? Blitzkrieg's greatest triumph. But one problem. Britain hasn't surrendered, and Churchill won't negotiate. June 4th. Churchill addresses Commons. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender. June 18th. This was their finest hour. But words won't stop panzers. The Bef is home, but weaponless. No tanks. No artillery. 25 divisions with rifles. Invasion seems certain. Churchill shows ruthlessness. July 3rd, Mers el-Kebir. Royal Navy arrives at French fleet in Algeria. Ultimatum. Join us. Sail to neutral port or be destroyed. French admiral refuses. 5:54 p.m. British open fire on former allies. Battleship Britannia explodes. 1,297 French sailors die. Brutal calculation. Better destroy French fleet than let it fall to Germany. Churchill shows he'll do whatever it takes. Britain prepares. Beaches mined. Pillboxes built. Road signs removed. Church bells as invasion warning. Home Guard formed. 1.5 million volunteers. Many elderly. Some train with broomsticks. July 19th. Hitler addresses Reichstag. Offers generous peace. Keep your empire. Germany wants only free hand in Europe. Churchill's response: silence, then rejection. If Britain won't negotiate, Hitler decides Britain must be invaded or destroyed. The question is how. Hitler orders the planning, Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain. The plan calls for landing 160,000 troops along England's south coast, Brighton to Folkestone. Establish beachhead. Drive on London. On paper, straightforward. In reality, nearly impossible. The English Channel isn't just a river crossing, as Hitler dismissively calls it. 21 miles at its narrowest. Strong tides. Unpredictable currents. Frequent storms. And defended by the most powerful navy on earth. The Royal Navy's home fleet. 5 battleships, 11 cruisers, over 30 destroyers. More ships available from other stations. Germany's Kriegsmarine? A shadow. Norway campaign devastated German naval strength. Heavy cruiser Blücher sunk. Pocket battleships damaged. 3 light cruisers lost. 10 destroyers gone. Current strength. No battleships operational. 1 heavy cruiser. Fewer than a dozen destroyers. Admiral Raeder is blunt. I cannot guarantee to protect an invasion fleet. The Royal Navy will massacre us. Germany begins gathering invasion barges. Over 2,000 vessels. Riverboats. Canal barges. Rhine cargo haulers. Hastily converted. Ramps welded to fronts. Most unseaworthy in open water. Slow. Vulnerable. Sitting ducks. Even getting troops across is only the first problem. British can cut supply lines within hours. Any landing force would be isolated, surrounded, starved. Raeder tells Hitler the brutal truth. Operation Sea Lion possible only if Germany first achieves total air superiority. The Luftwaffe must destroy the Royal Air Force. Then, maybe, invasion might succeed. Hermann Göring is supremely confident. Give me 4 good days of weather. I will destroy the RAF. Hitler sets the date, September 15th, 1940. Göring has until then to win control of the air. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. The forces are desperately unequal. Luftwaffe, 2,600 aircraft, 1,100 fighters, mostly Messerschmitt Bf 109Es, 1,500 bombers, 280 Stukas. RAF Fighter Command, 900 aircraft total, only 660 operational. 32 squadrons fly Hawker Hurricanes. 19 squadrons fly Supermarine Spitfires. Numbers favour Germany heavily. But Britain has advantages Germans don't fully understand. Geography. British pilots fight over home territory. When they bail out, back in cockpit next day. German pilots who bail out go to prison camps. Production. British factories churning out fighters faster than Germany, over 400 per month. But the decisive advantage is invisible. Chain home. 21 radar stations along Britain's coast. Massive steel towers, 350 feet tall, can detect aircraft 120 miles away. Developed by physicist Robert Watson Watt, the world's first integrated air defense network. When radar detects incoming aircraft, information flows to Fighter Command headquarters at Bentley Priory. Controllers plot raids on giant map tables, calculate numbers, altitude, direction, speed, alert sector stations. Fighter squadrons scramble, guided by ground controllers, positioned to intercept. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding commands Fighter Command. 60 years old, cautious, methodical, stuffy Dowding behind his back. But he understands survival mathematics. Can't throw fighters into every engagement. Must husband resources. Use radar to pick battles. Preserve force for the crucial moment. Germans make their first critical mistake. They don't understand how important radar is. July 10th, 1940. Battle officially begins. Luftwaffe starts attacking shipping in the English Channel, trying to lure Fighter Command into battle. Dowding refuses the bait, commits only small numbers, enough to show resistance, not enough to waste pilots. This drags on for nearly a month. Skirmishes, probing, both sides learning. Then Goering decides time for the main event. August 8th. Adlerangriff, Eagle attack. The plan: destroy the RAF on the ground, bomb airfields, smash aircraft factories, hit radar stations. 4 days to air superiority. August 12th. Coordinated attacks on radar stations. Several damaged. Ventnor knocked offline. Within days, repaired. Others never stopped working. Then, Goering's second critical mistake. Orders attacks on radar to stop. They're not important. Don't seem to work anyway. He has no idea radar is the key. August 13th. Adlertag, Eagle Day. Main assault begins. Wave after wave of German bombers and fighters cross channel. Targets: RAF airfields across southern England. Runways cratered. Hangars destroyed. Barracks hit. Ground crews suffer casualties. By evening, every airfield operational again. Runways filled. Fighters refueled and rearmed. Days tally: Luftwaffe loses 46 aircraft. RAF loses 13 fighters. not the one-sided German victory expected. August 15th becomes the biggest day. 1,800 Luftwaffe sorties. Attacks from Norway, Denmark, France, Belgium, simultaneously, trying to overwhelm defences. RAF scrambles everything. Some pilots fly 7 sorties. Landing, refueling, rearming, back up within minutes. By day's end, Luftwaffe loses 75 aircraft. RAF 34. Clear German defeat. August 16th to 23rd. Luftwaffe pounds RAF airfields relentlessly. Biggin Hill, Kenley, Hornchurch, North Weald, hit again and again. Buildings destroyed. Fuel dumps burn. Operations rooms wrecked. Ground crews work around the clock. Airfields keep functioning. Fighters dispersed to satellite fields. Operations continue from makeshift headquarters. But the real crisis isn't airfields. It's pilots. Fighter Command losing 120 pilots per week. Killed, wounded, or too exhausted. Training Command producing only 65 per week. New pilots arrive with 10 hours in their aircraft. Thrown into combat immediately. Many die on first mission. Squadron commanders, experienced pilots, dying at alarming rates. Leadership bleeding away. By August 23rd, Dowding knows the truth. Fighter Command is days from collapse. Maybe a week. 2 at most. Then everything changes. Night of August 24th. German bombers get lost. Think they're over oil refinery. Actually, over London. Drop bombs. Civilians die. First time London bombed. Churchill orders immediate retaliation. August 25th. 81 RAF bombers raid Berlin. Damage minimal. Psychological impact on Hitler enormous. He's promised German people no enemy bomber would reach Berlin. Now British bombs falling on the capital. Hitler is furious. September 4th rally. If they attack our cities, we will raze theirs to the ground. Orders Goering, switch targets. Stop attacking airfields. Start bombing London. Goering's third critical mistake. It saves the RAF. September 7th, 4:30 p.m. Largest formation yet. 348 bombers. 617 fighters. Nearly 1,000 aircraft. Target, London. East End docks hit. Warehouses burn. Fires visible 100 miles away. 430 civilians die. 1,600 wounded. But Fighter Command gets breathing space it desperately needs. Airfields no longer primary targets. Repair crews catch up. Damaged facilities restored. New pilots integrated carefully. Attrition rate drops. Fighter Command begins recovering. September 15th. The climax. 2 massive raids on London. The knockout blow. Final destruction of Fighter Command. Churchill visits Fighter Command headquarters at Uxbridge. Watches operations room. Controllers push markers across map tables. Squadron after squadron committed. Every unit in South engaged. Churchill to Air Vice Marshal Park. What other reserves have we? Park's reply, there are none. Every fighter engaged. Nothing left. If Germans send another wave, nothing to stop them. But Germans don't know this. Their crews report heavy resistance. RAF seems as strong as ever. By day's end, Luftwaffe loses 60 aircraft. RAF 26 fighters. German morale cracks. Pilots can't believe RAF still fighting. September 17th, Hitler decides. Operation Sea Lion postponed indefinitely. Not cancelled, just postponed. But everyone knows. Invasion isn't coming. Luftwaffe failed to destroy RAF. Without air superiority, Sea Lion impossible. Hitler quietly begins planning something else. The invasion of the Soviet Union. But Battle of Britain isn't over. Luftwaffe switches to night bombing. Safer from fighters. Terror bombing of cities. London bombed 57 consecutive nights. The Blitz. November 14th, Coventry. 500 bombers. Medieval cathedral destroyed. 568 civilians killed. City centre obliterated. Germans coin new verb to coventrate. To destroy utterly. Other cities suffer. Birmingham. Liverpool. Manchester. Glasgow. Belfast. Plymouth. May 10th, 1941. Last major raid on London. 550 bombers. 1,400 civilians killed. Then bombing stops. Luftwaffe pulled east, preparing for Barbarossa. The Blitz killed 43,000 British civilians, destroyed over 1 million homes. But morale never broke. London can take it. Britain proved something crucial. Blitzkrieg doesn't work when you can't cross the battlefield. Churchill, September 20th, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The few, 2,800 fighter command aircrew, 544 killed. They'd stopped Hitler. Proven blitzkrieg had limits. Lightning can't strike across water. While Battle of Britain rages, another crucial battle is fought in a Victorian mansion 50 miles north of London. Bletchley Park, Station X, the Government Code and Cipher School. This is where Britain fights its secret war. Mathematics and logic, breaking the unbreakable. The weapon, Germany's Enigma machine. Enigma was developed in the early 1920s as commercial cipher machine. German military adopted it in the 30s. By 1939, every branch of Wehrmacht uses it. About the size of a typewriter, battery-powered, portable. When operator types a letter, electrical current flows through 3 rotors. Each rotor scrambles the signal differently. Rotors can be set in different positions, swapped in different orders. Possible combinations, 150 million. Germans absolutely convinced it's unbreakable. Mathematically, almost right. Almost. The Poles cracked it first. 1932. Polish military intelligence recruited 3 brilliant mathematicians, Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rojicki, Henryk Zygalski. French intelligence had a spy providing Enigma documents, manuals, operating procedures. Using pure mathematics, Rejewski reconstructed Enigma's internal wiring. By 1933, Poles reading German military messages. They built electromechanical machines called bombers to speed decryption. But as Germany added complexity, Polish systems struggled. July 1939, war clearly coming. Poles invite British and French to Warsaw. Show everything. Share all work. Hand over 2 reconstructed Enigma machines. Weeks later, Poland invaded. Polish cryptographers destroy evidence. Some captured and tortured. None reveal the secret. Work continues at Bletchley Park. Commander Alistair Denniston recruits eccentric geniuses. Mathematicians from Cambridge. Chess grandmasters. Crossword champions. Linguists. Classicists. Among them, Alan Turing. 27 years old in 1939. Mathematical genius. In 1936, published paper describing theoretical universal computing machine. Now applies theoretical knowledge to practical problem. Breaking Enigma faster. Turing designs improved decryption machine. The bomber, inspired by Polish bomber, but far more sophisticated. Electromechanical. Size of a wardrobe. Drums rotate at high speed, testing rotor positions. Click, 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 click. When it finds possible solution, stops. Raw material. Y service. Radio listening stations across Britain intercepting German transmissions. Everything sent to Bletchley. Every midnight, Germans change Enigma settings. Every day, Bletchley must break them again. Sometimes hours. Sometimes minutes. Occasionally, can't break that day's traffic. Different German services use different codes. Army. Luftwaffe. Navy uses most complex version. Each broken separately. Once decrypted, translated, analyzed, cross-referenced. Intelligence called Ultra. Highest security classification. Distribution tightly controlled. Only senior commanders receive Ultra. Told only what they need. Never act on Ultra alone. Must have cover story. And critically, never reveal source. Make Germans think info came elsewhere. The system nearly fails at start. June 8, 1940. Norway campaign. Bletchley decrypts German naval message, revealing battle cruisers Scharnhorst and Gneisenau position. They're approaching carrier HMS Glorious. Warning sent to Admiralty. Skeptical staff officers don't trust new Ultra source. Don't pass warning to Glorious. Battle cruisers intercept Glorious. Sink her with all hands. 1,500 men die. Tragedy. But teaches Royal Navy crucial lesson. Trust Ultra. During Battle of Britain, Ultra provides invaluable intelligence. Luftwaffe codes broken regularly. Bletchley reveals German order of battle. Unit locations. Aircraft strengths. Attack plans. Dowding uses this to validate defensive strategy. Knows when major attacks coming. Knows which units tired. Knows German losses. Doesn't give ability to stop every raid, but gives knowledge to fight smarter. Churchill calls Ultra his golden eggs. Secret weapon that must never stop laying. By end of 1940, Bletchley employs 1,500 people. By war's end, over 10,000. Ultra will provide crucial intelligence, rest of war. U-boat positions Atlantic. Rommel's supply messages North Africa. Japanese diplomatic traffic Pacific. Confirmed D-Day deception worked. Historians estimate ultra-shortened war by 2 years. Saved millions of lives. Secret kept until 1974. 30 years after war ends. Alan Turing's contributions hidden even longer. 1952, prosecuted for homosexuality. Chemically castrated. 1954, dies of cyanide poisoning. Probable suicide. Only decades later does world learn he helped save Britain. But in 1940 and 41, mathematicians at Bletchley toil in secret, breaking codes, reading Hitler's mail, giving Churchill intelligence edge he desperately needs. Not blitzkrieg, not combat in traditional sense, but one of Britain's most powerful weapons. While Battle of Britain rages, another theatre opens. One draining German resources and delaying Hitler's ultimate ambition. North Africa. September 13th, 1940. Italian forces in Libya invade Egypt. Marshal Graziani commands 250,000 Italian troops against 36,000 British Commonwealth under General Wavell. Math seems simple. Italy should win easily. Graziani advances 60 miles, then stops, builds fortified camps, waits. Mussolini furious. Attack. Graziani refuses. British too strong. Absurd. Outnumbers them 7-1. British seize initiative. December 9th. Operation Compass. General O'Connor commands Western Desert Force. 31,000 men. 300 tanks. Attack Italian camps one by one. Italians surrender in droves. Entire divisions capitulate without serious resistance. By February 7th, 1941, O'Connor advanced 500 miles, captured 130,000 prisoners, destroyed 10 divisions. British casualties, 500 dead, 1,300 wounded. One of most one-sided victories in history. Italian army annihilated. O'Connor wants to push to Tripoli, knock Italy completely out. But Churchill makes fateful decision. Orders O'Connor to stop. Best troops sent to Greece instead. Hitler can't let Ally collapse. German prestige at stake. He sends help. 2 divisions. 5th Light and 15th Panzer. The Deutsches Afrika Korps. Commander, General Erwin Rommel. 49 years old. World War I hero. In France, commanded Ghost Division that moved so fast German High Command lost track. February 14th, Rommel arrives Tripoli. Orders: defend positions. Wait for full strength. Don't take risks. Rommel ignores orders. March 24th, attacks with fraction of forces. Catches British off guard. Classic blitzkrieg adapted for desert. Fast-moving armour. Deep penetration. Bypass strong points, then keep enemy off balance. British, best units in Greece, fall back confused. April 15th, Rommel pushed them to Egyptian border. Everything O'Connor won, lost. Only fortress port Tobruk holds. Australian troops garrison it. Rommel besieges but can't take it. Desert war settles into back and forth. Neither side can deliver knockout. Desert, perfect for mobile warfare. Flat. Open. Good tank country. War without hate, Rommel calls it. But logistical nightmare. No food, water, fuel locally. Everything shipped across Mediterranean, trucked hundreds of miles. Rommel's tactical brilliance, undeniable, but can never solve supply problem. Will eventually doom him. North Africa becomes sideshow, tying down British forces. Meanwhile, Hitler has another mess to clean up. The Balkans. October 28, 1940. Without consulting Hitler, Mussolini invades Greece from Albania. Hitler will find out from newspapers, Mussolini boasts. Wants victories matching Germany's. Greeks fight back ferociously. Stop Italian advance. Counterattack. Drive Italians back into Albania. Humiliate Mussolini's army again. Britain sends help. Troops from North Africa. RAF squadrons. Weakens O'Connor, allowing Rommel to succeed. Then Yugoslavia complicates everything. March 27, 1941. Coup in Belgrade overthrows pro-German government. Pro-British regime takes power. Hitler, furious. Counting on Yugoslav cooperation. Now potential enemy on southern flank. Immediate decision. Invade Yugoslavia and Greece simultaneously. Destroy both. April 6th. Operation Marita. 33 divisions strike from multiple directions. Luftwaffe bombs Belgrade. 17,000 civilians die. Yugoslav army, spread thin, poorly coordinated. Collapses in 11 days. April 17th. Surrenders. Greece. British and Greek forces in mountain positions. Good defensive terrain. But when Yugoslavia falls, flank exposed. Defense crumbles. April 27th. Germans enter Athens. Swastika over Acropolis. British evacuate to Crete. Another Dunkirk. 50,000 successfully withdrawn. Heavy equipment left behind. Balkans. Another blitzkrieg success. Fast. Decisive. Overwhelming. But hidden cost. Delays Barbarossa 5 weeks. 5 weeks that prove crucial when winter comes. For now, Hitler has one more target. Crete. May 20th, 1941. 7 a.m. Sky over Crete fills with aircraft. Junkers 52s. Dozens. Hundreds. Gliders land. Paratroopers jump. Operation Mercury, first major airborne invasion. 22,000 German paratroopers and glider troops. Elite Fallschirmjäger. Defending. 42,000 British Commonwealth and Greek troops, mostly evacuated from Greece. Low on heavy weapons. But forewarned by Ultra. They know Germans coming. Know when. Know where. First day catastrophic for Germany. Paratroopers land in prepared killing zones. Shot as they float down. Gliders crash. Units scattered. By evening, German casualties exceed 4,000. 20%. One day. Operation on verge of failure. But Germans captured one critical objective, Malmö airfield. just barely. That airfield saves operation. Transport planes land under fire. Many destroyed on runway, but enough get through. Reinforcements pour in. May 27th, British commander orders evacuation. Island can't be held. Royal Navy evacuates 16,500. 18,000 captured. Navy pays terrible price. Luftwaffe has complete air superiority. Ships in daylight massacred. 3 cruisers sunk. 6 destroyers sunk. 13 ships damaged. Over 2,000 sailors killed. May 31st, last British troops leave. Germans won. But costs staggering. German casualties exceed 6,000. Nearly 4,000 dead. Elite Fallschirmjäger devastated. 7th Parachute Division loses over a third. Hitler shocked. Crete proves airborne operations too costly. We will never attempt such a thing again. He doesn't. Germany never launches another major airborne assault. Ironically, Allies draw opposite lesson. See, airborne operations can work. Need better planning, coordination. Will use extensively later. Mediterranean sideshows accomplished something crucial. Drained German resources. Delayed Barbarossa. Tied down troops. But haven't threatened Germany's core. Haven't stopped Hitler's momentum. Now, finally, Hitler is ready for what he's always wanted. What he planned since Mein Kampf. Conquest of Soviet Union. The greatest gamble of all. June 22nd, 1941. 3:15 in the morning. Along a front stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, nearly 2,000 miles, the largest invasion in human history begins. Operation Barbarossa. 3,800,000 Axis troops. 3,600 tanks. 2,700 aircraft. 600,000 vehicles. 625,000 horses. The horses are important. Despite all the modern equipment, the bulk of the German army still moves on horseback or on foot. Only the spearhead is mechanized. This is the war Hitler has always wanted. The one he planned from the beginning. In Mein Kampf, written 17 years earlier in a prison cell, he laid it out. Germany must expand eastward. Seize Lebensraum, living space, for the German people. Enslave or eliminate the Slavic populations. Take the vast resources of the East. The Soviet Union has what Germany needs. Ukrainian grain, the breadbasket of Europe. Caucasus oil, Baku, Maikop, Grozny. Iron ore, coal, timber, minerals. Endless resources. And Hitler believes the conquest will be easy. We have only to kick in the door, he tells his generals, and the whole rotten structure will come crashing down. He has reasons for confidence. The Winter War against Finland exposed Soviet military weakness. The Red Army suffered humiliating defeats against a tiny opponent. It took overwhelming numbers months to achieve victory. And Hitler knows why. Stalin's Great Purge. From 1937 to 38, Joseph Stalin systematically destroyed his own military leadership. Paranoid about disloyalty, he executed or imprisoned tens of thousands of officers. 3 of 5 marshals shot. 13 of 15 army commanders executed. 57 of 85 corps commanders eliminated. 110 of 195 divisional commanders purged. The survivors are terrified. Better to fail following orders than succeed through initiative. The Red Army's command structure is paralyzed by fear. Hitler's plan is ambitious but clear. 3 simultaneous thrusts. Army Group North, under Field Marshal Wilhelm Ritter von Leeb, drive through the Baltic states to Leningrad. Army Group Center, under Field Marshal Fedor von Bock, the main thrust. Smash through Belorussia toward Moscow. This gets the most powerful forces, Panzer Groups 2 and 3 under Guderian and Hoth. Army Group South, under Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, conquer Ukraine, then push to the Caucasus oil fields. The timeline: 5 months. Total victory before winter. Before the Soviet Union can fully mobilize its massive reserves. It's the greatest gamble of Hitler's career, and he's betting everything. The Red Army is not unprepared. On paper, 5.5 million men in Western USSR, 15,000 tanks, including the excellent 34 and KV-1, 10,000 aircraft. But numbers mean nothing without leadership, training, and preparation. And Stalin has made a catastrophic decision. Despite warnings from multiple sources, Soviet spies including Richard Sorge in Tokyo, British intelligence from ultra-decrypts, even his own border troops, Stalin refuses to believe Hitler will attack. He thinks it's British propaganda trying to start a war between Germany and the USSR. He's convinced Hitler won't risk a two-front war while Britain still fights. Stalin forbids defensive preparations. Don't provoke the Germans, he orders. Troops are not allowed to take defensive positions. Then units are not on alert. June 21st, the night before the invasion, reports flood in. German troops massing at the border. Deserters crossing over with warnings. Unusual activity. Stalin dismisses it all. Probably just provocations. At 3:15 a.m., 3,000 German guns open fire. The largest artillery bombardment in history. The ground shakes. The sky lights up. Bridges across the border rivers are seized by special forces. At 3:30, panzers cross the frontiers at multiple points. At dawn, the Luftwaffe strikes. 1,200 Soviet aircraft are destroyed on the ground in the first hours. Caught parked wingtip to wingtip. Most never get airborne. Soviet communications collapse immediately. Phone lines are cut. Radio stations destroyed. Orders can't get through. Units are isolated, confused. No coordination. And Stalin? He's nearly catatonic. For days he says nothing. Refuses to believe the reports. Retreats to his dacha and won't see anyone. Not until June 28th does he finally address the Soviet people. Brothers and sisters, he begins, unusual language from a communist dictator. He's appealing to nationalism, not ideology. But by then, the damage is catastrophic. The first weeks are a nightmare for the Soviet Union. Army Group Center executes the perfect blitzkrieg. Guderian's panzers and Hoth's panzers drive forward in parallel thrusts. They bypass Soviet strongpoints, race into the rear, cut communications, spread chaos. June 29th, just 7 days into the invasion, the pincers meet near Minsk. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops are surrounded. The pocket is systematically destroyed. 290,000 prisoners. 2,500 tanks captured or destroyed. Entire armies annihilated. Guderian doesn't stop. Keep moving. Don't consolidate. Drive deeper. July 16th, another encirclement near Smolensk. 310,000 more prisoners. 3,000 more tanks destroyed. By mid-July, Army Group Center has advanced 400 miles. They're 200 miles from Moscow. The road seems open. To the north, Army Group North races through the Baltic states. Latvia falls. Lithuania. Estonia. Some locals welcome the Germans as liberators from Stalin's brutal rule. They don't yet know what German occupation will bring. September 8th, Leningrad is surrounded. The city of 3 million is cut off. Hitler orders, don't storm it. Starve it into submission. Let the population die. The siege of Leningrad begins. It will last 872 days. Over 1 million civilians will die, mostly from starvation. In the south, Army Group South makes slower progress. Stiffer resistance. Better Soviet commanders. More difficult terrain. But they're still advancing. By any measure, Barbarossa is succeeding beyond expectations. The Blitzkrieg formula is working perfectly. But warning signs are appearing. The distances are staggering. Poland to Moscow, 1,000 miles. The panzers are hundreds of miles ahead of their supply columns. There are few paved roads. Russian railways use a different gauge than German. Every mile of track must be converted. It's slow, labor-intensive work. Supplies struggle to keep up. Fuel, ammunition, spare parts. Everything has to be trucked hundreds of miles over terrible roads. And Soviet resistance is fiercer than expected. Red Army soldiers fight with a desperation the Germans haven't seen before. Not the demoralization of the French. Not the confusion of the Poles. This is different. This is existential. Soviet troops fight to the last bullet, then hand to hand. Wounded soldiers detonate grenades rather than surrender. Units surrounded don't give up. They fight until annihilated. Stalin issues Order 227, not one step back. Retreat without orders means execution. NKVD blocking detachments shoot anyone who runs. It's brutal, but it works. The Soviet army doesn't collapse. Scorched earth policy begins. Retreating Soviet forces destroy everything. Bridges blown. Crops burned. Livestock slaughtered or driven east. Factories dismantled and shipped to Siberia. The Germans will find nothing to live off. Behind German lines, partisan warfare erupts. Soviet soldiers cut off in the first advances, don't surrender. They go into the forests. Form guerrilla bands. Attack supply columns. Sabotage railways. Assassinate collaborators. The German rear areas become increasingly dangerous. And then there are the weapons. The 34 tank shocks German tankers. Its sloped armour deflects German shells. Its 76mm gun punches through German armour easily. It's faster cross-country than any panzer. And the Soviets are producing them in huge numbers. The KV-1 heavy tank is even worse. 45 tons. Immune to German anti-tank guns. One KV-1 holds up an entire panzer division for a day near Rosini. It takes repeated attacks to finally knock it out. And there's a new weapon that terrifies German soldiers. The Katyusha. Multiple rocket launchers mounted on trucks. 16 rockets fired in 7 seconds. They make a distinctive shrieking sound. German troops call them Stalin's organs. The rockets aren't particularly accurate, but fired in mass salvos, they blanket an area with high explosives. The psychological effect is devastating. German casualties mount. By the end of July, just 5 weeks into the campaign, 100,000 dead and wounded. That's more than Poland and France combined. Summer dust chokes tank engines. Visibility drops. Breakdowns increase. The panzers that conquered France are wearing out. And then Hitler makes his first catastrophic mistake. Early August 1941. Guderian's panzers are 200 miles from Moscow. The road is open. German reconnaissance can see the glint of the Kremlin domes on clear days. Every general begs Hitler, let us drive for Moscow, capture the capital, knock out the Soviet government, win the war before winter. Hitler says no. He's obsessed with economics, not strategy. He wants the Ukrainian grain. He wants Army Group South to succeed. Kiev must be taken. August 23rd, he orders Guderian's panzers to turn south. Help Army Group South encircle Kiev. Guderian argues furiously. This is madness. Moscow is there for the taking. Every week of delay means closer to winter. Hitler is unmoved. My generals know nothing about the economic aspects of war, he says. The order stands. The panzers turn south. September 16th, the Kiev encirclement closes. It's the largest encirclement in military history. 665,000 Soviet soldiers trapped. An entire front, the Soviet equivalent of an army group, destroyed. It's a tactical masterpiece, a strategic disaster. The operation costs 3 precious weeks. 3 weeks closer to winter. 3 weeks when the panzers could have been driving on Moscow. By the time Hitler finally authorizes the assault on the Soviet capital, it's October. Too late. October 2nd, 1941. Operation Typhoon begins. The final drive for Moscow. 1 million German troops. 1,700 tanks. 1,000 aircraft. Everything Army Group Center has. The initial results are spectacular. October 7th. Another massive encirclement at Vyazma. 660,000 more Soviet prisoners. The road to Moscow seems open again. October 20th, the Mosaisk defensive line is broken. German forces push to within 50 miles of Moscow. Reconnaissance units can see the golden domes of the Kremlin. Panic grips the Soviet capital. Government offices prepare to evacuate to Kuibyshev on the Volga. Foreign embassies flee. Many party officials run. For a few days in mid-October, Moscow is on the verge of collapse. Then the weather changes. October rain begins. Not ordinary rain, torrential downpours. The Russian roads, mostly unpaved, turn to liquid mud. Rasputitsa. The season of mud. Tanks sink to their tracks. Trucks bog down. Horses drown in the mud, trying to pull artillery. Then soldiers wade knee-deep, sometimes waist-deep. The advance slows to a crawl. Some days, units make less than a mile. Supply columns can't get through. Ammunition runs short. Fuel deliveries stop. Food doesn't arrive. October 31st, the offensive is temporarily halted. Wait for the ground to freeze. Meanwhile, the Soviets prepare. Stalin appoints Marshal Georgy Zhukov to command Moscow's defense. Zhukov is ruthless, brilliant, and utterly loyal to Stalin. He mobilizes the city. 500,000 civilians, mostly women, are sent to dig defensive lines, anti-tank ditches, trenches, bunkers, 3 defensive rings around Moscow. Stalin makes a critical decision. He'll stay in Moscow. The government won't flee. November 7th, the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, Stalin holds the traditional military parade in Red Square, while German artillery is within range of the city. Troops march through Red Square, then march directly to the front. Some units are in combat within hours. It's a defiant gesture. Moscow will not surrender. And Zhukov has a secret weapon. Siberian divisions. Throughout the summer and fall, Soviet spy Richard Sorg in Tokyo has been sending intelligence. Japan will not attack the Soviet Union. They're going to strike south against the Americans and British. This frees Stalin to move troops from the Far East. 30 divisions. Over 100,000 fresh, well-equipped troops trained for winter warfare. They begin arriving in secret throughout October and November, hidden in the forests around Moscow, waiting. Mid-November, the ground finally freezes. The panzers can move again. November 15th, the final German assault begins. But now the temperature is plunging. -20 Celsius. -30. -40. The Germans are unprepared. Hitler was certain the campaign would be over by autumn. No winter clothing was issued. No antifreeze for vehicles. No winterized lubricants. Tank engines won't start. Oil freezes solid. Soldiers have to light fires under the tanks just to get them running. Weapons jam. The cold makes metal brittle. Machine guns fail. Bolt-action rifles freeze. Frostbite casualties exceed combat casualties. Men lose fingers, toes, ears, noses. Soldiers stuff newspapers under their uniforms for insulation. Some freeze to death at their posts. But still they advance. November 28th, advance units of the 2nd Panzer Division reach Khimki, a Moscow suburb just 15 miles from the Kremlin. It's the closest the Germans will ever get. Officers can see Moscow's golden domes glinting in the distance. But they can't go further. December 4th, the offensive stops. Completely exhausted. Frozen. Out of supplies. Unable to continue. And then Zhukov strikes. December 5th, 1941. Dawn. A massive Soviet counteroffensive erupts across the entire front around Moscow. 100 divisions attack. 1 million fresh troops. The Siberian divisions, plus reinforcements from across the Soviet Union. Massive artillery bombardment. Then, 34s crash through the frozen German positions. Soviet infantry in white winter camouflage on skis. The Germans are stunned. Where did all these troops come from? The Red Army was supposed to be destroyed. Units begin falling back, some in good order, some in panic. December 8th, Hitler issues his most famous order. Stand fast. Not one step back. Every man fights where he stands. Hold positions to the death. No retreat authorized. It's desperation. But it works. The German line bends but doesn't break. Units fight from encirclement. Hold villages and towns as fortified positions. The retreat is stopped. But Hitler pays for it with his generals. December 16th to 19th, he conducts a purge. Field Marshal Walther von Brauchitsch, Commander-in-Chief of the army, is fired. Army group commanders are sacked. 35 corps and divisional commanders are relieved. Guderian, the architect of Blitzkrieg, is dismissed for ordering tactical withdrawals. Hitler takes personal command of the army. From now on, every decision goes through him. By January 1942, the Soviet offensive exhausts itself. The Germans have been pushed back 100 to 200 miles, but the line holds. Moscow is saved. The cost is staggering. Germany, 250,000 casualties in the winter battles. Dead, wounded, frostbitten. Another 200,000 lost in the summer and autumn campaigns. The Red Army has lost even more. Millions. But the Soviet Union has millions more to call up. Operation Barbarossa has failed. Hitler's 5-month timeline is shattered. The Soviet Union hasn't collapsed. Moscow hasn't fallen. The war isn't over. For the first time, the Wehrmacht has been stopped. Thrown back. Defeated. Blitzkrieg has met its limit. Distance. Winter. And an enemy willing to die rather than surrender. But Hitler refuses to give up. The war in the East will continue for 3 more years. And the next phase will be even more catastrophic. Spring 1942. Hitler faces reality. He can't defeat the Soviet Union across the entire front. Germany doesn't have enough troops. The distances are too vast. And there's a critical shortage: oil. The German war machine is running dry. Romanian oil fields aren't enough. Synthetic fuel production can't meet demand. The solution lies in the Soviet Caucasus. Baku, Maikop, Grozny. The oil fields that fuel Soviet industry. Hitler devises a new strategy. Operation Blue, Full Blau. Focus on the southern front. Army Group A will drive into the Caucasus to seize the oil fields. Army Group B will advance along the Don River to protect the northern flank. June 28, 1942, Case Blue begins. Initial success is dramatic. Soviet defences in the south are weaker than expected. The Germans retake ground lost during the winter. July 9th, the German army splits. Army Group A heads south toward the Caucasus. Army Group B heads east along the Don. July 23rd, Rostov-on-Don is captured. The gateway to the Caucasus is open. Army Group A races deep into the Caucasus Mountains. August 9th, they seize the Maikop oil field. But the Soviets have destroyed it thoroughly. Every well sabotaged. Every piece of equipment wrecked. It will take months to restore production. The advance continues. German mountain troops climb Mount Elbrus, the highest peak in Europe, and plant the swastika flag on its summit. A propaganda victory. By late August, Army Group A is within 70 miles of the Caspian Sea. The main Caucasus oil fields are tantalizingly close. Then the advance stalls. Supply lines are stretched impossibly thin. The mountains are difficult terrain. Soviet resistance stiffens. And reinforcements aren't coming. Because Hitler has made another catastrophic mistake. Stalingrad. The city wasn't in the original plan. It's just an industrial center on the Volga. A city on Army Group B's flank. But it bears Stalin's name. Hitler becomes obsessed. The symbolism is too powerful. Take the city named after his hated enemy. He diverts forces from Army Group A, sends them north to Stalingrad. The Caucasus offensive loses momentum, stalls, stops. The main strategic objective, the oil, is abandoned. For a city, for a name. August 23rd, General Friedrich Paulus's 6th Army reaches the Volga River just north of Stalingrad. 270,000 men. The Luftwaffe pounds the city. 40,000 civilians die in one day of bombing. The city burns. Paulus begins his assault. He has no idea he's walking into the greatest disaster in German military history. Stalingrad stretches for 30 miles along the western bank of the Volga River. An industrial city. Tractor factories that produce tanks. Steel plants. Arms factories. Oil refineries. 600,000 civilians. It's a nightmare to attack. Every building a fortress. Every street a killing zone. The rubble from bombing creates perfect defensive positions. September 13th, 1942. German troops enter the city. General Vasily Chuikov commands the Soviet 62nd Army defending Stalingrad. He makes a simple declaration: "We will defend the city or die." Stalin issues Order 227. Not one step back. Retreat means execution. NKVD blocking detachments are positioned behind Soviet lines. Their job: shoot anyone who runs. Punishment battalions are formed from cowards and political prisoners, sent on suicide missions to redeem themselves. The fighting that follows defies description. This isn't warfare. It's mutual slaughter. House to house. Room to room. Floor to floor. Sometimes fighting on different floors of the same building simultaneously. German soldiers call it Rattenkrieg, rat war. Soviet tactics: hugging the Germans. Stay so close that German artillery and air support can't be used without hitting their own troops. Distances measured in meters, sometimes in feet. Snipers everywhere. Vasily Zaitsev becomes legendary. Claims to have killed 225 Germans. Whether true or propaganda, the story terrifies German troops. Sewers are used for movement and supply. The rubble above for fighting positions. Night infiltration operations. Silence is impossible. The rubble shifts and clanks. So, Soviet troops attack during heavy fighting when noise doesn't matter. Reinforcements cross the Volga at night. Under constant German fire, many boats are sunk, but enough get through. The average life expectancy of a Soviet soldier in Stalingrad, 24 hours. Famous defensive positions become legend. Pavlov's house. A 4-story apartment building. Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and 24 men hold it for 60 days. They fortify every floor. Plant mines around the approaches. Machine guns in the windows. Anti-tank rifles in the basement. Germans attack it repeatedly. Can't take it. One Soviet officer later writes that more Germans died trying to take Pavlov's house than died taking Paris. Mamayev Kurgan, Hill 102. The highest point in the city. Changes hands multiple times. After the battle, Soviet troops find bodies stacked meters deep. So many shells and bullets are embedded in the soil that grass won't grow for years. The grain elevator. A massive concrete structure. 50 Soviet Marines hold it for 5 days against an entire German division. When it finally falls, 18 defenders are still alive. The Red October Steel Factory, Barricady Gun Factory, Dzerzhinsky Tractor Factory. Fighting inside the factories while they're still producing weapons. Tanks driven straight from the assembly line into combat. September. Germans control 2/3 of the city. October 4th. Final German assault. Massive Stuka attacks. Artillery bombardment. Infantry attack. Progress measured in rooms, not blocks. Every meter costs lives. November. Germans hold 90% of the city. The Soviets are squeezed into a strip 1,000 yards wide, backs to the Volga. But they won't break. And while the world watches Stalingrad, Marshal Zhukov plans. Operation Uranus. Throughout October and November, Soviet forces are secretly assembled. Over 1 million troops. 13,500 guns. 900 tanks. 1,100 aircraft. All moved at night. Hidden in forests. Camouflaged. The Germans don't detect it. Their attention is fixed on the city. Zhukov studies the German positions. Identifies the weak points. The flanks. North and south of Stalingrad, the German Sixth Army's flanks are held by Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian troops. Less well equipped than the Germans. Lower morale. Overstretched positions. The plan, a classic double encirclement. Break through the weak flanks. Drive deep. Meet west of Stalingrad. Trap the entire Sixth Army. November 19th, 1942. 7:30 a.m. The northern attack begins. 3,500 guns open fire. The earth shakes. 90 minutes of bombardment. Then 34s crash through the Romanian Third Army's positions. The Romanians break, entire divisions disintegrate. Soviet tanks race through the gaps. German reserves are too far away to help. Too few. November 20th, the southern attack. Same result. Romanian Fourth Army collapses. November 22nd, Soviet pincers racing toward each other. November 23rd, 4 p.m., they meet at Kalash on Don. The trap snaps shut. 290,000 German and Axis troops are surrounded. The entire 6th Army, plus elements of the 4th Panzer Army, Romanian and Croatian units. General Paulus radios Army Group headquarters. Army encircled. He requests permission to break out immediately, while it's still possible. The answer comes from Hitler himself. Stand fast. 6th Army will hold Stalingrad. Form a hedgehog defense. The Luftwaffe will supply by air. Hermann Göring promises Hitler the Air Force can do it. We can supply the pocket, he assures the Führer. It's a catastrophic lie. The 6th Army needs 700 tons of supplies per day. Food, ammunition, fuel, medicine. The Luftwaffe's maximum effort, on the best day of the entire siege, delivers 289 tons. One day. Average, 100 tons per day. Why the airlift fails? Distance. The nearest German airfields are 200 miles away. Weather. Blizzards. Ice. Fog. Aircraft can't fly for days at a time. Soviet fighters. The Red Air Force now controls the sky. Transport planes are easy targets. Airfields keep getting captured. As the pocket shrinks, the Luftwaffe has fewer and fewer places to land. Not enough aircraft. Germany doesn't have the transport capacity. Starvation begins. December. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein launches a relief operation. Operation Winter Storm. The 4th Panzer Army, rebuilt after being partially encircled, drives towards Stalingrad. 6th and 23rd Panzer Divisions lead. December 19th. They get within 30 miles of the pocket. Manstein radios Paulus, break out now. Fight your way to us. Paulus wants to. His officers beg him to give the order. 30 miles. They could make it. But Paulus refuses to act without Hitler's permission. And Hitler's order is clear. Hold Stalingrad. December 23rd. Soviet Operation Little Saturn. A massive counterattack hits Manstein's relief force. The relief operation collapses. Manstein is forced to retreat to avoid being encircled himself. The last hope is gone. Inside the pocket, conditions become apocalyptic. Starvation. Rations cut repeatedly. Men waste away. Frostbite. Thousands of amputations. Field hospitals overwhelmed. Disease. Typhus spreads. Dysentery. No medicine. Horses are slaughtered and eaten. When the horses are gone, men scavenge anything. Rumors of cannibalism. Never confirmed, but widely believed. The last airfield is lost. No more supplies at all. January 8th, 1943. The Soviets offer surrender terms. Decent treatment. Repatriation after the war. Paulus refuses. Hitler forbids surrender. January 10th. Operation Ring. The final Soviet assault. 7,000 guns bombard the pocket. The shrinking German perimeter is squeezed smaller each day. German soldiers are herded into the ruins. Many are too weak to fight. Some can barely stand. January 26th. The pocket is split in two. Southern pocket in the city centre. Northern pocket in the factory district. January 30th. Hitler promotes Paulus to field marshal. The message is clear: no German field marshal has ever surrendered. Paulus should shoot himself rather than be captured. The same day, Paulus surrenders the southern pocket. February 2nd, 1943, the northern pocket surrenders. The last resistance ends. 91,000 German and Axis soldiers stumble into captivity. Skeletal, frostbitten, sick. Only 5,000 will ever see Germany again. The Butcher's Bill. Germans and Axis allies, 500,000 casualties. The entire Sixth Army destroyed. 22 divisions annihilated. 900 aircraft lost. Soviets, 750,000 casualties. Military. Civilians, 40,000 killed in the city. The turning point. It's Germany's first major defeat. The myth of invincibility is shattered. The initiative on the Eastern Front passes to the Soviet Union. It will never return to Germany. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels declares 3 days of national mourning. German radio plays somber music. But the German people know the war has turned. And Hitler isn't done. One more offensive. One more attempt to regain the initiative. Kursk. After Stalingrad, the Red Army surges forward. January to March 1943. Soviet offensives across the entire southern front. They recapture Kharkov, Kursk, push the Germans back hundreds of miles. Then Manstein strikes back. March 1943. A brilliant mobile defense. Manstein uses the last German reserves. Launches a counter-offensive. He retakes Kharkov. Stabilizes the front. Stops the Soviet advance. But the counterattack creates something interesting. A bulge in the Soviet lines around Kursk. A salient pushing west into German territory. It looks vulnerable, exposed, tempting. Hitler sees an opportunity. One more offensive. Cut off the Kursk salient. Encircle and destroy the Soviet forces inside. Regain the initiative. Operation Citadel. Unternehmen Zitadelle. The plan: simultaneous attacks from north and south. Pinch off the salient. Classic blitzkrieg encirclement. But Hitler makes a critical decision. He delays the attack. Germany has new weapons. The Tiger tank. The Panther tank. The Tiger weighs 55 tons. Has an 88mm gun that can destroy any Soviet tank at long range. Its frontal armor is nearly impenetrable. The Panther is faster, 43 tons. A new 75mm gun specifically designed to kill 34s. Hitler wants to wait, build up enough Tigers and Panthers, make the offensive overwhelming. Originally scheduled for May, delayed to June, then early July. Every week of delay gives the Soviets more time. And they're using it. Marshal Zhukov knows the attack is coming. Soviet intelligence is excellent. They have spies in the German High Command. The Lucy spy ring in Switzerland provides detailed information. British ultra-intelligence is shared. Zhukov knows when, knows where, knows how. The Soviets prepare the most elaborate defense in history. 8 defensive belts, one behind another, stretching back over 100 miles. 20,000 anti-tank mines, 6,000 anti-tank guns, thousands of bunkers, trenches, fire positions, barbed wire everywhere. And troops, 1.3 million men, 3,600 tanks, 20,000 guns and mortars. The Germans are assembling their strike force, 7,700 tanks, including over 200 Tigers and about 200 Panthers. It's the largest concentration of German armour ever assembled. July 5th, 1943, 4 a.m. The Soviets know the exact time of the attack. They fire a massive, preemptive artillery barrage, catching German troops in their assembly areas. 5 a.m. The Germans attack anyway. From the north, Model's 9th Army. From the south, Hoth's 4th Panzer Army. The northern attack grinds forward through the prepared Soviet defences. Mines everywhere. Anti-tank guns firing from concealed positions. The new Tigers and Panthers break down frequently. Their complex engines overheat. In 3 days, Model's army advances just 6 miles, loses 200 tanks, 25,000 casualties, then stalls completely. The southern attack does better. Hoth's panzers penetrate deeper, 25 miles in the first week. But the losses are staggering. 350 tanks destroyed, 10,000 men killed or wounded. And Soviet reserves keep appearing. More tanks, more anti-tank guns, more troops. July 12th. The The climax. Prokhorovka. Hoth's 4th Panzer Army is approaching what looks like a breakthrough point. One more push. Break through the last Soviet defense line. Zhukov throws in his strategic reserve. 5th Guards Tank Army. 850 tanks. They charge straight into the German formations. The largest tank battle in history. 1,800 tanks locked in combat across a 12-mile front. The Soviet 34s charge at full speed, close the range, negate the Tigers' advantage in long-range gunnery. Point-blank armoured melee, tanks ramming each other, shells fired at ranges of 50 metres or less. The battlefield becomes an inferno. Burning tanks everywhere. Ammunition exploding. Black smoke blotting out the sun. It's tonine. It's tonine. By evening, the field is littered with wrecks. The Germans have lost 350 tanks. The Soviets, 650. But here's the critical difference. The Soviets can replace their losses. 34 production exceeds 1,000 tanks per month. Germany cannot. Each Tiger, each Panther lost is irreplaceable. And the German attack has stalled. July 13th. Hitler cancels Operation Citadel. Multiple reasons. July 10th. The Allies invaded Sicily. Italy is collapsing. Troops must be sent to the Mediterranean. The Kursk offensive has obviously failed. To no breakthrough achieved. Losses too high. Germany can't afford this war of attrition. Even as the fighting at Prokhorovka rages, the Soviets launch their own counter-offensive. They attack the flanks of the German penetrations. The Germans are forced to pull back, retreat from their hard-won gains. August 5th. The Soviets recapture Orel and Belgorod, both cities liberated. For the first time in the war, Moscow fires a victory salute. Artillery salvos, fireworks, celebrations in the streets. August 23rd. Kharkov falls again, this time permanently. The Germans are in full retreat across the southern front. The Red Army is advancing on all sectors. Operation Citadel is Germany's last offensive in the east. The cost. Germany loses over 200,000 casualties. 500 tanks and assault guns destroyed. The cream of the panzer forces shattered. The Soviets lose even more, over 800,000 casualties. 1,800 tanks. But the Soviets can absorb the losses. Germany cannot. Why Blitzkrieg failed at Kursk? No surprise. The Soviets knew everything, prepared accordingly. The delay gave the Soviets months to build defenses specifically designed to stop German armor tactics. Soviet industry now outproduces Germany. More tanks, more guns, more aircraft, more everything. The new German tanks, Tigers and Panthers, are formidable but unreliable, break down constantly, require specialized maintenance, can't be produced in the numbers needed. Soviet manpower seems endless. Germany is scraping the bottom of the manpower barrel. Most critically, the Soviets have learned. They've studied German tactics for 2 years. Adapted. Improved. Now they're using Germany's own methods against them. Deep operations. Mobile warfare. Combined arms. Massive artillery concentrations. Air support. The student has surpassed the teacher. From Kursk onward, the Red Army never stops advancing. Westward. Always westward. 1944, Operation Bagration. The Soviets use blitzkrieg tactics to destroy Army Group Center. The encirclement is larger than anything the Germans ever achieved. 1945, Soviet tanks in Berlin. May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. The lightning war that began in Poland in September 1939 ends in the ruins of Berlin in May 1945. Blitzkrieg rose meteoric, fell catastrophic. The arc is complete. Let's be clear about one thing. Blitzkrieg wasn't a failure of tactics. The tactical brilliance was real. Concentrated armor striking at weak points. Combined arms coordination. Speed and deep penetration, creating shock and confusion. Radio communication, enabling fluid operations. Air power, integrated with ground forces. All of it worked. Poland, France, the early months of Barbarossa. Rommel in the desert. When the conditions were right, Blitzkrieg was devastatingly effective. But the conditions were almost never right. And therein lies the story of its fall. Flaw number 1. Blitzkrieg was designed for short wars. Strike fast. Win before the enemy can mobilize. Before superior numbers and resources can be brought to bear. It worked when facing weaker, unprepared opponents. Poland surrounded on 3 sides, caught off guard. France fighting the last war, doctrine frozen in 1918. But once the shock was survived, once enemies had time to adapt, numbers mattered. The Soviet Union had 190 million people. America, 130 million. The British Empire, nearly 500 million across the globe. Germany, 70 million. Even with conquered territories, maybe 150 million. In a long war, in a war of attrition, these numbers become destiny. Germany lacked the resources for sustained conflict. No oil. Limited iron ore. Synthetic rubber instead of real. Always scrambling for raw materials. The Allies? Soviet oil from Baku. American industrial might. British access to global resources through the empire. Once Blitzkrieg failed to win quickly, Germany was doomed. Flaw number 2. Logistics ignored. The panzers could race hundreds of miles ahead. The problem was keeping them supplied. In France, the distances were manageable. Barely. The advance nearly outran its fuel supplies. But France is small. Good roads. Dense railway network. Russia? 1,000 miles to Moscow. Few paved roads. Different railway gauge. Mud in autumn. Snow in winter. The German army still moved primarily on horses and feet. Only the spearhead was motorized. The bulk of the force couldn't keep up. Supply trucks consumed fuel getting to the front, leaving less for the panzers. The deeper the penetration, the more fuel spent on supply. A vicious cycle. Guderian could reach the outskirts of Moscow, but he couldn't sustain operations there. The supply line was too stretched. Blitzkrieg required infrastructure that didn't exist in the east. Flaw number 3. No strategic bombing capability. The Luftwaffe was designed for tactical support. Close air support for ground forces. Attacking enemy airfields and troop concentrations. It was brilliant at this. The Stuka dive bomber was a flying artillery piece. But Germany never developed heavy bombers like the American B-17 or British Lancaster. The Luftwaffe couldn't reach deep into enemy territory. Couldn't destroy Soviet factories in the Urals. Couldn't cripple American production. The Battle of Britain exposed this fatal weakness. Medium bombers trying to do a strategic bomber's job. Escorted by fighters with barely enough range to reach London. Germany could win tactical battles, but couldn't win the strategic air war. Enemy industry remained untouchable. Flaw number 4. Hitler's interference. The Holt Order before Dunkirk. 338,000 Allied troops escape. The British Army lives to fight another day. The diversion from Moscow to Kiev. 3 weeks lost. The delay proves fatal when winter comes early. The obsession with Stalingrad. A city that wasn't even a strategic objective. The Sixth Army destroyed for symbolism. Not one step back, orders that destroyed entire armies, rather than allowing tactical withdrawals. Taking personal command of the army after the Moscow failure. Every decision requiring his approval. Strangling tactical flexibility. Hitler was a gambler, not a strategist. He could authorize bold moves, but he couldn't see when to cut losses. Couldn't adapt when the situation changed. His interference turned tactical setbacks into strategic catastrophes. Flaw number 5. Underestimating the enemy. Nazi racial ideology poisoned military assessment. The Slavs were subhuman. The Soviet Union a rotten structure that would collapse when kicked. The Red Army leadership destroyed by purges. All true, but it didn't matter. Because the Soviets were fighting for survival, not for ideology, not for Stalin, for their homes, for their families, for existence itself. That desperation created a will to resist that Germany never anticipated. Soldiers fighting to the last bullet. Civilians defending cities, street by street. Partisans behind the lines. Scorched earth that left nothing for the invaders. And the democracies weren't weak. Britain didn't fold after France. America's industrial capacity dwarfed Germany's. The British Empire's resources were vast. Germany consistently underestimated its enemy's ability to produce, adapt, and endure. Flaw number 6. Fighting everyone simultaneously. Blitzkrieg required focus. Overwhelming force at the decisive point. But by December 1941, Germany was at war with Britain and the Commonwealth, the Soviet Union, the United States, 3 of the most powerful nations on earth, simultaneously. Divisions in Norway, North Africa, the Balkans, France and the Low Countries, the Eastern Front. Resources spread thin everywhere. No theatre had enough. A multi-front war is exactly what Germany couldn't afford. Exactly what Blitzkrieg was supposed to prevent. And the final, fatal flaw, the enemies adapted. The Soviets learned German tactics, then used them better. Deep operations, massive artillery concentrations, tank armies used for breakthrough and exploitation, air support integrated with ground forces. By 1944, Operation Bagration destroyed Army Group Center using blitzkrieg methods. The encirclements were larger than anything the Germans ever achieved. The British developed better tanks, better anti-tank guns, radar-directed air defense, ultra-intelligence from Bletchley Park. The Americans brought overwhelming material superiority, production that Germany couldn't match. Germany's tactical advantages in 1939 and 40 were gone by 1943. The Allies had caught up, surpassed. Blitzkrieg worked when it surprised unprepared enemies. Once the surprise was gone, once enemies understood the tactics and built defenses specifically to counter them, the formula failed. At Kursk, the Soviets knew everything. Built 8 defensive belts, concentrated massive reserves, turned Germany's own tactics against them. The student had become the master. Blitzkrieg fell because it was brilliant tactics serving catastrophic strategy. You can't win a world war with operational art alone. Eventually, industrial capacity matters. National resources matter. Alliances matter. Sustainability matters. Germany had none of these. So, the lightning struck, dazzled the world, then struck the ground. After Kursk, the Red Army never stops advancing. Westward. Always westward. 1944. The Soviets liberate Ukraine, smash through Belorussia, reach the Baltic states, enter Poland. June 6, 1944. The Western Allies land in Normandy. Germany now faces the multi-front war it always feared. 1945. Soviet tanks enter Germany itself. American and British forces cross the Rhine. April 30th, 1945. Adolf Hitler shoots himself in his Berlin bunker. The man who unleashed Blitzkrieg dies as his capital burns. May 8th, 1945. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The cost is almost incomprehensible. 70 to 85 million dead worldwide. The Soviet Union, 27 million, 16% of the entire population. Poland, 6 million, 17% of its people. Germany itself, 7 to 8 million. The Holocaust, 6 million Jews systematically murdered. Blitzkrieg's legacy is written in ashes across Europe. But militarily, the legacy is profound. Every modern army studies Blitzkrieg. The tactics are taught at every military academy. Combined arms warfare is now standard doctrine. Tanks, infantry, artillery, and air support working together. Maneuver warfare, deep penetration, encirclement, speed over firepower. The American air-land battle doctrine of the Cold War. Blitzkrieg adapted for modern technology. Israeli armor tactics in 1967 and 73. Blitzkrieg principles applied to desert warfare. The First Gulf War in 1991. Coalition forces using Blitzkrieg methods to destroy Iraqi forces in 100 hours. The tactical revolution was real, permanent, but the strategic lessons matter more. Tactical brilliance without strategic wisdom is catastrophic. Technology can't overcome logistics forever. Underestimating enemies is fatal. Industrial base and resources matter more than battlefield genius. You cannot win a war against the world. These lessons were written in blood. 60 million lessons. September 1st, 1939. Lightning strikes Poland. May 8th, 1945. The thunder falls silent in Berlin. 5 years, 8 months, and 7 days. Blitzkrieg rose meteoric, fell catastrophic, and changed warfare forever. September 1st, 1939. 4:45 in the morning. Lightning strikes Poland. May 8th, 1945. The thunder falls silent in Berlin. 5 years, 8 months, 7 days. The arc is complete. We began with a revolution in warfare. Concentrated armor. Combined arms. Speed and shock replacing grinding attrition. A weapon so devastating it seemed unstoppable. Poland in 5 weeks. Denmark in 6 hours. France in 6 weeks. But every weapon has its limits. Blitzkrieg couldn't cross the English Channel, couldn't conquer the vast distances of Russia, couldn't sustain itself in the frozen mud outside Moscow, couldn't survive the meat grinder of Stalingrad, couldn't break the prepared defences at Kursk. The tactical brilliance was real, but it served catastrophic strategy. Hitler's hubris. Fighting the world simultaneously. Underestimating enemies. Ignoring logistics. Obsessing over symbols instead of substance. The cost? 70 to 85 million dead. Cities reduced to rubble. Families shattered. An entire continent consumed by war. Not statistics. Stories. Lives. The German soldier freezing to death outside Moscow. The Soviet mother starving in besieged Leningrad. The Polish family hiding in cellars as their nation disappears. The British pilot falling from the sky over Kent. Each one a universe destroyed. We study the tactics to understand how armies move. We study the strategy to understand how nations fall. We remember the cost to understand why it matters. Blitzkrieg changed warfare forever. Every modern military studies it, uses its principles, adapts its methods. But the deeper lesson is simpler. Even lightning eventually strikes the ground. Innovation without wisdom is dangerous. Tactics without strategy is catastrophic. Ambition without limits is fatal. The thunder rolled across Europe for 5 years, then fell silent. But the echoes remain. In textbooks, in doctrine, in memory, and in the imperative to remember, to study, to learn, so that the lightning never strikes like that again. This has been History Radio, the rise and fall of Blitzkrieg. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and share. More military history is coming. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to explore next. Remember the past. Learn from it. Honor those who lived through it. The lightning flashed. The thunder rolled. And the world would never be the same.